Inside of the concentration camps of the Second World War, the different SS guards utilised their environment to slaughter and kill. Some prisoners were drowned in the mud around the camps during winter, others were taken to firing ranges, where a sole executioner or a firing squad were waiting for them with their pistols, and some inmates were thrown into high-voltage electric fences that surrounded most of the camp. Execution and torture was used upon millions of people during the war, and the SS had a death toll of their victims well in the millions. One of the toughest concentration camps was known as Mauthausen, and this was a site which was known for its brutality, and the inmates were driven incredibly hard to conduct their work, and if they did not work hard enough they faced execution by gunshot or were taken to nearby sites to be driven into special gas chambers. But Mauthausen was said to have been one of the most financially profitable camps of them all, in terms of the production output, which was the highest, and there was a sadistic game played by the SS guards that resulted in the deaths of many, and this was known as a Parachutists Wall, and it was one of the cruelest execution methods of the Second World War. Welcome to the Fortress. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Mauthausen concentration camp opened on the 9th of August 1938, and the first inmates of the site had been sent from the first concentration camp of Dachau, which was set up inside of Nazi Germany. These inmates were forced to construct much of the new site, which would be later used for slave labour, and after much research by the SS officials, they settled on the construction of Mauthausen, being where it was, due to the close proximity it had to a granite quarry. The camp was created around this, and also there were good transport links, as it was found close to Linz, the hometown of Adolf Hitler. The granite that was mined inside of Mauthausen previously was known to have been very good quality, and it was even used to pave the streets of the Austrian capital, Vienna. Adolf Hitler and the Nazis planned to construct a new Germany and a new capital, and the plans were huge in their scope, and for this Hitler needed a huge amount of granite. He did not want to spend huge amounts of money on resources, building new buildings and construction projects, when he had one eye on a new global conflict. Hitler preferred to spend more of the German money on the military and improving armaments production, and because of this the solution was to use prisoners of war and slave labour to work inside of Mauthausen to mine the resources that were needed. Mauthausen became one of the largest complexes inside of the concentration camps, and some of the subcamps were huge. But there were many other factories constructed around Mauthausen, and many other companies used the prisoners to work inside their factories for free or very little, which would then be paid to the German Reich. The conditions of Mauthausen were terrible, and there was a huge issue with overcrowding, and the barracks that the prisoners lived and slept in were not sufficient for the amount of people inside of them, and because of this there were many diseases which spread around the camp. One of the biggest issues with Mauthausen was that accidents and incidents from work were very common, and there was a medical facility established in the site, which was known as a Krankenlager. But there was no medicine given to prisoners, just very basic first aid, and a number of experiments took place inside the camp, and the average life expectancy of the inmates was roughly 6 months from when they arrived inside of Mauthausen, and as the war rolled on and continued, the life expectancy just became 3 months. As the war turned against the Germans, the food rations inside of Mauthausen got even more stretched, and they decreased, and prisoners were too weak to stand, and those who could not work were sent to extermination sites, such as the nearby Hartheim Castle, where they were forced into gas chambers, when they believed they would be given some form of care and medical treatment. But one of the most ruthless and horrific elements of Mauthausen, which was certainly one of the most striking, was the Stairs of Death. This was a huge set of stairs, which led towards a quarry, where much of the granite was being mined, and then taken to the main camp. The stairs were 186 specific stone steps, which were all uneven, and some were very large, requiring a prisoner to clamber up them, and the inmates were forced to carry heavy stones, weighing up to 50 kilograms, up and over the stairs many times a day from the quarry. It was harrowing work, and this was made worse as the guards drove the inmates up quicker, beating them and striking them with their whips and other weapons. This usually led to accidents also, and if a prisoner in a queue of prisoners up the stairs fell, then they could cause a domino effect of dozens of people then falling down the stairs, which was very dangerous. They were forced to carry these boulders all day, and this was exhausting work, and was some of the most severe labour used inside of all the concentration camps. But there were many different ways in which prisoners were executed by the guards, and the SS officials and guards, for example, even forced some prisoners to walk into the electrified fences around camps such as Auschwitz. At Mauthausen, the guards used the quarry and the stairs of death to execute prisoners and inmates. They played a horrific game, which was known as the Parachutists Wall, or the Fallschirmspringerwand. The guards led a collection of prisoners up to the edge of the quarry pit, above the stairs of death, and they then at gunpoint ordered them to stand in a line, with one poor soul stood on the edge of the cliff. These prisoners were then told that they would participate in a sick game, and they were then told they had the option of pushing the prisoner in front of them off the cliff, or if they failed to do this, then they would be shot on the spot. It was referred to as the Parachutists Wall in a very sick way, as throughout the day the prisoners would be thrown off the cliff face to their deaths. And of course there was absolutely no chance of survival, as the inmates crashed into the stone quarry below them from a huge drop. The fact they were either forced to take the life of another inmate and prisoner, or they would be shot, was a harrowing choice, and some did face the bullet of the SS executioner there and then for their refusal to push, but others, under immense duress and the threat of their own lives, did do this and pushed other people off the cliff. It was kill or be killed, and the prisoners did not have a choice to do this, or leap off the cliffs themselves. A former prisoner claimed about the work inside of Mauthausen's quarry that, if you stopped for a single moment, the SS either shot you or pushed you off the cliff to your death, and the decision to take part in the Parachutists Wall or not was one which prisoners had to very quickly make. There were many guards who worked at Mauthausen who became known for their brutality, but only a select few were sent to their deaths inside of the execution chambers of the Allied prisons for their actions. Many SS guards managed to escape, and the Parachutists Wall was a horrific and terrifying game that the SS played. They would throw dozens of prisoners off the high cliffs to their deaths. Mauthausen was known for its death toll, and over 90,000 people succumbed to the horror of the sight, with extermination through labour policies leading to the life expectancy of just a matter of months from when an inmate entered Mauthausen for the first time. The stairs of death and the quarries was where a horrific amount of terror was inflicted upon very vulnerable people, and whilst many were hard at work in the quarries, it was known to see people plunging from the cliffs to their deaths, being driven by the SS. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.